am the proud owner of both a Steam Deck and an original Win Max. Now there's a lot of overlap to what both these devices can do, but I think in some ways they complement one another and they've both earned their place in both my life and my heart. Both of these are portable in their own way, but I personally prefer the form factor of the Win Max. It fits into my teeny tiniest handbag. It's the same size as my iPad mini and the same size as a normal notebook. The Steam Deck, on the other hand, is a little bit chunkier, but it's nowhere near as bad as I was expecting. It's basically the size of a Switch, but with fancier Joy-Cons on the side. So they're both portable, but I do think the Win Max is a little bit better in that respect. For the price in 2023, you can get different versions of the Steam Deck, but mine is a 512GB version, as is the Win Max, and I got the Steam Deck secondhand for £500 and the Win Max for £400. Both very similarly priced, but the Win Max is cheaper. Hey! In terms of raw gaming power, the Steam Deck absolutely wins because it's a newer device, but you would be surprised at what the Win Max can play comfortably as well. I haven't bought the Win Max for the top-end games, obviously. That would be a very silly thing to do. I get all of that joy from the Steam Deck and my other devices, but the Win Max has Windows, and that is sometimes just blooming easier to use for certain games, like Overwatch 2 and Minecraft and drone simulation. There are some things that the Steam Deck's a little bit finicky with due to it running Linux, and some games just work better with Windows. Another benefit of Windows is having the Xbox PC Game Pass, which is a very affordable way of getting lots of cool games on your device. The hardware of the Win Max, I think, is lovely. In some situations, depending on how you sit, it's very ergonomic. I like to keep it almost sort of completely flat so I can lean the base of it on a cushion, and then the ventilation has loads of air and it's very comfortable to hold in that way. I also think the D-pad is stunning. I've noticed in games like Crash Bandicoot 4 and Hollow Knight that I actually play better on the Win versus the Steam Deck. It might be completely the opposite for other people, it's just personal preference, but I think the D-pad on the Win Max is so responsive and very, very nice to play. The analog sticks are okay. I've put Switch rubbery things on the top to make them a little bit more grippy, and I think aesthetically it looks quite nice. But I do think the analog sticks and the wrist rests in the way that the Steam Deck works is just lovely. I have to say the Steam Deck is probably the most comfortable device I've ever played on. And I also adore the flappy paddles of joy. The flappy paddles of joy, I cannot play certain games without flappy paddles. If I'm playing Call of Duty or Halo or Far Cry 5, I need the flappy paddles. I need them. So having them on the Steam Deck has been worth its weight in gold, and of course we don't have that on the Win Max, unfortunately. Screen size and screen quality. I have the anti-glare version of the Steam Deck and I love that screen. It is chef's kiss. I tend to sit on the couch with a lamp behind me when I game, so having the anti-glare is really, really handy. On the Win Max sometimes I do have some reflection, so I turn the lamp down or off. However, the Win Max screen is bright and lovely and a little bit bigger and certainly taller as well. So there are pros and cons to both. So the benefits of having both. If you have an extensive Steam library, not by some people's standards, but I think given that I've only had the Steam Deck a couple of months, I've gone from owning one game, which was Liftoff, my drone simulator game, to having So of course, with the Steam library, you can play your games on both. You don't have to buy them twice, so there's no additional cost if you buy a new handheld device. Battery life. For less intensive games like Slay the Spire, which I am completely obsessed with, I'm still bad at, but I am obsessed with, I do think the Win Max has the edge in terms of battery life. I can play that game for blooming hours on the Win Max without it making a dent. When it comes to more intense games, I think both devices are as bad or as good as one another, depending on which way you look at it, which is to say they're both distinctly average. You get between 1.5 and 2 hours for the very intensive games, and maybe 4 to 5 hours for the mid-range graphics games. Other use cases for the Win Max. Now you can use the Steam Deck as a desktop computer, should you want to, but because it is running Linux, it is very limited. Whereas with your Windows, you can run Lightroom and CapCut for video editing and word processing if you fancy. You can have any Windows software run pretty well on the Win Max. And if you use an external mouse and have a HDMI into a bigger screen, it's not even a compromise. It's just a legitimate Windows experience. Emulation. I love both devices for emulation. I have this cute little micro SD which runs Batacera, and it's got all of my emulation up to Switch on it. If I want to use something that has the analog sticks, I would probably use it on my Steam Deck. If I was going to use something that needs more of my D-pad, I do like that on the Win Max a little bit more. It's great that I can swap and change between the devices and everything stays the same. I do recommend the DeckMate stand if you do swap out multiple micro SDs, because you do have storage within the stand, so the accessory has 2 uses, which I think is always handy. So those are my reasons for keeping the Win Max and loving it to bits in 2023. And also my reasons for having both the Steam Deck and the Win Max, even if it's a little bit bougie. Watch this video next, which is all of my favourite Steam Deck accessories and a couple that I think are just not worth the money at all. So check it out here.